Welcome to The Explainer. You know, what if our most common assumptions about things like progress, art, and even the reason we learn are just plain wrong? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating dialogue that turns these huge questions right on their head. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the first question is a big one, right? You hear it all the time. With so many problems right here on Earth, what's the actual benefit of spending billions and billions of dollars on space exploration?
Now, the master's answer isn't at all what you'd expect. It's not about new technology or national prestige. Nope. He says the real benefit is something much more human. It's collective joy. Just think about that for a second. A discovery that makes everybody happy, even just for a little while. That shared feeling, he argues, is absolutely priceless.
And this isn't just some abstract, feel-good idea. This collective joy, it has a real, tangible impact. It connects this massive, grand project to a feeling that's super simple and personal. It's like he says, a good mood just makes life better. And a shared good mood, well, that lifts everybody up. So, this idea that our inner state can actually affect our outer world is a perfect pivot to the next section. Here, the questions turn inward, shifting from the cosmos right down to the laboratory. So next up, the disciple brings up a really tough one, a classic ethical dilemma. Should we be sacrificing animals for the sake of medical breakthroughs for humans? And wow, the master's response here just completely flips the script. He doesn't weigh animal life against human progress. No, he challenges the scientists directly. If the cause is so noble, he asks, then why not bear the risk yourself? All of a sudden, the focus isn't on the animal anymore. It's on the integrity of the person doing the experiment. And then he just lands this sharp critique. You can't go around doing a villainous act and then build a monument to yourself as some kind of hero. It's a really powerful warning against using a noble cause to justify some pretty questionable actions. All right, so from the lab, the conversation pivots over to the art gallery. And the disciple asks a question I'm pretty sure many of us have wondered while staring at a canvas full of, well, splatters. The disciple just asks for a simple definition, probably expecting some complex philosophical answer. The master's response, though, is surprisingly blunt. He just dismisses it entirely. He argues that it's missing the fundamental skill that defines what real art is. For him, it's not some higher form of expression, but a total lack of form. So for the master, true art is all about skillful representation. He actually uses caricature as the perfect example. Think about it. An artist can wildly exaggerate someone's features, but you still immediately recognize the person. That, he says, is the mark of real talent. But here's the twist. Even though he's so harsh on abstract art, he is a huge proponent of art education. He believes that learning to appreciate beauty in things like music and painting is a core skill, one that's essential for any profession, because it teaches you how to recognize quality and excellence in all things. This focus on developing human judgment, whether we're talking about art or science, leads us perfectly to our next big topic, artificial intelligence. What happens when our own creations start to rival our own skills? This is pretty much the most modern question in the whole dialogue, isn't it? It's a fear that dominates so many of our conversations right now. But the master, he doesn't see it as some new problem. He sees it as a reality that's already here and has been for a long time. He basically argues that this kind of technological replacement has always happened. It's simply what progress looks like. Cars replaced horse-drawn carriages, right? He says this is no different. The real problem isn't the AI itself, but our resistance to adapting to the change that it brings. And to make his point crystal clear, he offers this really powerful and simple analogy that brings the focus right back to us. His point is dead simple. The morality of any tool is decided by its user. The responsibility lies with us, not with the technology. The threat of AI is really just the threat of humanity, reflected right back at us. This brings us to the final, and maybe the most fundamental, part of this whole dialogue, the very nature of learning itself. Why should we even bother?
and what really gets in our way. The disciple says something that I know we've all felt at some point. Why bother learning something if there's no immediate, practical use for it? Why learn just for the sake of learning? The master's response here is just brilliant. He totally dismantles the whole idea by comparing learning to eating or sleeping. We don't eat in order to achieve something later. We eat because we have to live. His point is that learning is just as fundamental to having a meaningful life. So he presents learning not as a way to get a skill for a job, but as this noble act of exploration. He uses Columbus as an example, someone who set out without a guaranteed destination. True learning, he says, is about discovering something new through struggle, and when you do that, you make the path easier for everyone who follows you. So what stops us from this pure kind of learning? Well, the master is a pretty surprising answer. It's not about how hard the subject is or how little time we have. The biggest obstacle is actually internal. He reveals that when we learn with the goal of seeming superior, of gaining power over other people, or just to win arguments, we corrupt the entire process. It transforms learning from an act of discovery into an act of conquest. And that leaves us with a final, really challenging question for ourselves. When we decide to learn something new, is it coming from a pure desire to understand, or is that just a beautiful excuse to build ourselves up?